Hey, how's it going, everyone? In today's project, we're going to create a mortgage calculator app using JavaScript. Let me quickly show you how this app actually works. Say we want to buy a house for $1.5 million. Ooh, that's a sum. And we have $250,000 already as a down payment. Now, the loan amount will be calculated automatically. And let's say we have an interest rate of 4.6%. Now, the loan duration, let's say we introduce 15 years. Now, after you hit calculate, down here we will see that we need to roughly pay, or exactly pay, $9,626.42 each month to pay off our mortgage. Now, I say we don't have that money, so all we can do is increase the loan duration because the interest rate is pretty much fixed. Let's do that. Let's change this to 25 years, and this will result in $7,919.05, and of course we could also increase it to 30 or 35. That is still a lot of money, but if you don't have that much money, then please give this video a thumbs up. So if you stick around to the end of the video, also I'm going to show you how you can create this custom alert, because if your fields are empty, then it shouldn't be able to calculate your mortgage. Or even if one field is empty, just so you're going to type in here something or something, then the rate, it still won't work. Now, this will automatically disappear. This alert, custom alert, will disappear after 3 seconds. You can then increase the time if you wish so, or you can just click on it and it will disappear. So with this being said, my name is Norbert and I teach web development. So let's get started with this project. This application is completely responsive. So if I make it smaller, mortgage calculator app will still work. Let's say we want to buy a home for $800,000 and we already have $250,000. Then the loan amount will be $550,000, and now let's calculate the mortgage rate of 5.6 and a loan duration of 25 years. Let's press enter. This would mean a monthly payment of $3,410.41. Of course, again, we could increase the mortgage time, so the loan duration, and then we would pay just a bit less each month. Okay, so this is the app. Let's get started. Now we are going to use Materialize CSS for styling and also Bootstrap. I'm not going to use any kind of CSS. Always the code is down in the description below. So if you miss something or you just want to follow along instead of code along, then please feel free to do so. Just go ahead, down the code from the link in the description below and have fun. Now I just created an empty folder. Within here, let's create a index.html file. Let's start with our boilerplate, shift exclamation mark. First things first, let's give this a title, mortgage calculator. Next up, let's include Materialize CSS CDN and Bootstrap CDN. We're going to go to Materialize. So this is materialize.com. And from here, just go, this is actually the home page. Yeah, from here, we're just going to go to get started and copy both links. So both for CSS and for JavaScript. Going to copy them, right click, copy, and insert them above my title. Let's hit save. And next up, let's go to Bootstrap and also copy its CDN. Let's click on documentation. So docs, go down until you find CDN and copy this link right here. For this one, create a link file just like you would create for a CSS and paste in the link. Now that's it for our basic setup. I'm going to close up both of these files and I'm just going to leave, or web pages, sorry about that. I'm just going to leave my Finish app opened, and let's also open up our newly created application. So right click, open live server, or you should have your live server down here if you have installed it. Perfect, we can't see anything, so let's just quickly create an H1 and just going to copy the title down here, paste it in, and we can see that this is working. Now it should sit like this, so without margins and paddings, and this just means that the CDNs are working and you are getting your basic styling for Bootstrap and also Materialize CSS. Now that we have everything linked up, let's get started with creating the basic container for our application. Before we do that, let me add a silver background color. As you can see in our finished application, the background color is a bit different from the app, and I'm just going to add to the body a class of silver. Now I just realized that I actually want my Bootstrap CDN, cut it out, above my Materialize CDN because I want them to take effect in this order. Now let's move on and create a container. I'm going to go above my title and create a class of container. So dot container, and I also want the container to have a shadow class. So these are all Bootstrap classes, and of course a couple of Materialize CSS classes. The shadow class is going to give us a shadow, then a rounded of 3, which is going to give us a rounded border for our container, rounded, then an all-around padding of 3, a background of white, and a margin on the x-axis of 1. And now let me move our h1 within here, and there we go, we have our container. I'm also going to add to the title a couple of classes. So let's say I want to have a display of 1 and a text center in order to align the text to the center of the page. Now for this part, we are actually going to use a form which when we submit is going to do all these calculations. So let's go ahead, create a form tag. The action is going to be just star, not going to send us anywhere, or you could just delete it completely. We don't need any kind of action. I'm going to take care of this using JavaScript later on. But I'm going to give it an ID of mortgage, and I'm going to grab onto this ID later on using JavaScript. So mortgage, and let's start off by creating within our form a kind of a main container. Now let's create a main tag, and this is going to have a class of row. This row is going to contain multiple columns, but I also wanted to have a margin on the x-axis, so to have a differentiation. So to have a differentiation between our title and the entire main container of 5 rem. Next up, let's create our very first input field, and an input field is basically composed out of a input and a label. So let's go ahead, create a class of input dash field, and within the input field we're going to have an input with the class of autocomplete, and this is actually using the Materialize CSS classes, and a ID, so a hash of home value. Let's hit enter. Now for the type of the input, I'm going to choose number, and this is just because I don't want to be able to add text to this. I only want to be able to add numbers. Now right after our input tag, we need to create a label tag, which is going to contain the name, and don't need the for, going to contain the name of the input field. So this is going to be home value. Let's hit enter, and there we go. Now we need to repeat this a couple of times, so I'm going to copy and paste this 4 more times. Let's go ahead, copy the entire input field once, twice, third, and the 4th time. And let's go ahead and make the necessary changes. So the next one will be down payment. So I just need to change the ID to down payment, and also the text to down payment and payment. The next input field is where the loan amount will be calculated. Now I don't want to be able to add here anything, so this input field will be disabled. Now we can simply type in a property of read only. This will make it read only and not allow me, wait a second, this should be the other one, sorry about that. This would be this one. This will not allow me to type in here anything. Now for the ID, we're going to change it to loan amount, and we're also going to give it a placeholder loan amount. And of course the label will also be changed to loan amount. The next one will be the loan duration. So let's change the ID to loan duration, and also the label to loan duration. And also we're going to type in here years, because we need to introduce here years. And I think I added one too many. No, I messed something up. And this should actually be down here, but that's not a problem. We're going to type in here the interest rate. After the loan amount should be the interest rate and then the loan duration. No problem. We're going to fix it right here. So this is the ID of interest rate, and also the title or the label should be interest rate. And we're just going to take this, hold down. If you're on a Mac, you should hold down Options. If you're on a PC, then hold down Alt and move the arrows upwards until you insert it above the loan duration. And there we go, we should have everything up and running. Next up, we need to create the button which will submit our form. Now, please remain within your form but outside this main tag. Now, let's go ahead, create a footer tag. You can obviously create just a div if you wish, but I do consider this being in the footer of the application. So this is why I'm using a footer tag. Now I'm going to give this a class of row-calls-1 and a alignment of the items to the center. This is basically just using CSS grid, but within Bootstrap. And let's also give it a margin of a all-around margin of 5. Within our footer, we're going to create 2 button tags. The first button will be the button that is going to submit this, which is going to submit the form and execute the calculation. So let's go ahead, create a button tag. It's going to have a class of btn, which is a general Bootstrap class, and a btn-large. Let's type in here the text of calculate, and we should always see our button. Actually, this btn-large is a Materialize CSS class, and also this color is a Materialize CSS class. The function of this button should be to submit the form. So let's go ahead and create a type property, and we're going to add the submit property, the submit value to this property. Okay, now this button will submit the form, and as you can see, it's refreshing the page. We are going to stop this refresh using JavaScript just in a couple of seconds, but just so you know, if I would change this to the type of button, it will no longer submit the form. Now, by default, a button, as soon as it is in a form, will try to submit the form. So we're going to leave this as submit, and we're going to create our next button. Now I'm just going to copy the first button and add a couple of classes. For example, after btn-large, I'm going to add a rounded to pill class. This is actually a Bootstrap class. I'm going to set the background color to orange, so just type in orange, and give it a margin from the top of 5 rem. Now for the text, I'm going to change it to month.payment and add columns to it. And within here, we're going to use a span tag with the ID of monthly payment. Okay, and in order for the text to pop out a bit, I'm going to go ahead, go up above this span and create a B tag. I'm going to add this to this B tag a style of text shadow. I'm going to add a text shadow of 1 pixel, 1 pixel, 1 pixel, and an RGBA of, let's say, 0, 0, 0, so completely dark, and a opacity of 0.2. Okay, so you can always see the text is having a bit of a shadow. Now we need to move this text, or the entire spam and the text tag. Let's just cut it out and move it into our bold tag. Because the text has a bold font, and also it has a bit of a shadow. So if you click on this button, the problem is that it's submitting. As I said, a button is automatically submitting. Even if I take out this submit property, it's still submitting. So what I need to do is change this to the type of button. Okay, so to no longer submit the form. And that's basically it for our HTML file. Now let's move along and create our JavaScript file. Let's create a mortgage.js file and go back to our HTML file and also include it using the script tag and mortgage.js. There we go. Just to prove that it's working, let's inspect our page, go to the console, and let's say console log mortgage. And let's see save, and we should see our mortgage pop up in the console. Okay, so we have our JavaScript file up and running. Now we can start by grabbing on to the DOM elements from our application. So I'm going to comment this part out, and let's type in here comment of inputs / DOM elements. Now we need all of these elements. So the home value, the loan amount. Why do I have here home value? This should actually be, sorry about that, didn't change this to down payment. So this should be down payment, and also you should be down payment. All right, sorry about that. So let's grab onto these. Now I could just go ahead, take the home value, go in here, create a variable with the const keyword, pasting home value, then grab on from the document using, now you could use query selector or get element by ID. If it's more obvious to you that you're grabbing onto IDs, then use get element by ID and paste this in. And we're going to repeat this for all of the elements. So I'm going to copy this actually 5 more times. And let's go ahead, get our down payment, copy it, select the first two. You can select the first one and hold down Command on a Mac or Control on the PC, and then press the D keyboard or the D key and paste it in. Let's go on to the next one, which is loan amount. Let's copy it, grab onto both of them, and there we go, loan amount. Then the next one will be the interest rate. Copy this one, paste it in. And the last thing that I want to grab on is, well, loan duration, and I also want to grab onto the form. So loan duration, and we need to copy this and grab onto our form down here, up here actually. It's not down, it's up. Where's the form? There's the form, and we have the ID of mortgage. You know what? I'm going to rename this to form. So just as you know that this is actually the form, and leave a bit of space between them. So we have grabbed onto everything. If you want to check if everything works, then you could just create a console log and paste everything in here using commas. So down payments, loan, just to verify that you don't mess anything up. But also the code is down in the description. It should work. So you can go ahead and check it out and hit enter, and we should see the input of home value, down payment, loan amount, interest rate, and our form, of course. Okay, so we grabbed onto everything. I'm going to comment this part out. Now let's first of all calculate the loan amount. And as you saw in our finished project, it is pretty much calculated automatically. So it doesn't matter what I add in here. The loan amount is without a down payment exactly the home value. So if I start to type in here something, then it's going to automatically calculate it. Now this is done using a event listener, and we're going to use the keyUp event listener. Now we need to grab onto the down payment actually and add to this event listener. So down payment dot add event listener. We're going to add the event of keyUp. So basically when I'm releasing a key, it's going to do something. Now this something, I'm going to add in here a callback function, will be to grab onto the loan amount, but not the tag itself or the element itself. You need to grab onto its value, so whatever we type in there. And we're going to assign it to the home value dot value. Sorry that I'm using values so much, but we are grabbing onto the home values value. And we're going to subtract from the home value the down payment dot value. So what we're getting here is the loan amount dot value. So actually I could just create another variable of loan amount and value, and I'm going to assign it to the newly created loan amounts value. Now when this is executed, it is subtracting, and I need to add it to a variable. So grab onto it, add it to a variable, because this value is now created, and we're going to return from this function the loan, return the loan amount value. So now if you start typing in here 8,000 something something and go to the next input field, which is the down payment, and I just used the tab button. So as soon as I enter this input field with the tab button, with the tab key, and I release the key, it is taking this amount, adding it here, and trying to subtract whatever is in the down payment. But because there's nothing in the down payment, is the actual value that is in here. Now it start to add in, let's say 5,000, and as soon as I release a key, it starts calculating. Okay, so we have this done. Next up, we need to start calculating the mortgage. For this one, I'm going to create a mortgage calculator function. So let's create a function with the function keyword, call it calculate mortgage. Now, how exactly a mortgage is calculated, you can find dozens of examples on the internet and dozens of formulas. Now, I took that formula and integrated it within here. So I'm not going to explain the formula itself, but I am going to explain how I'm using JavaScript to integrate that formula. Basically, the calculator needs three values, and that is the loan amount, which you already calculated, then the interest rate, and the number of payments. So loan amount, the interest rate, and the number of monthly payments. Now, as I said, when I demonstrated the calculator, the interest rate is actually expressed in percentage percentages. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create here a function which is going to convert whatever we insert here into percentages. So let's call this function percentage to decimal. This is going to take an argument of percentage, of percent, and it's going to return the percent divided by 12 and divided by 100. So I'm going to take the interest rate, and as soon as the interest rate is introduced here, I'm going to reassign it using the percentage to decimal function and introduce the interest rate. Okay, so the interest rate will be recalculated using this percentage function. Next, we need the number of monthly payments. Now, we are introducing here, as you can see, years, but we need a monthly payment, so we need to convert them to month. So let's create another function. Let's call this function years to month. This is going to take in an argument of year and return the year times the number of months, which is 12. So as soon as we enter, we will enter in this function the number of months. It's going to be reassigned using the years to months, and it's going to take in the number of monthly payments. You know what? I can actually close up the left side using Command B or Control B. Now for the formula. Let's create another variable using the let keyword. Let's call this mortgage. We'll grab onto the interest rate and multiply it by the loan amount. Then we're going to divide it by, and this is just the formula that I got from the internet, but believe me, this works. 1 minus, and we're going to use now math to the power of, so dot pow, 1 plus the interest rate. And remember, this is going to be recalculated here. So this is the first argument for the power of function. And then we're going to use with minus or a negative value of number of monthly payments. And this will then return the mortgage. But the mortgage needs to be expressed as a float. So I'm going to use here parse float. So parse float. And we're going to introduce here the mortgage. And because I want to have only a fixed number of decimals, I'm going to use 2 fixed and use only 2 decimals after our 0. Okay, so we got our calculate mortgage formula up and running. Now we need to execute it somehow. As I said, we're going to execute it using the calculate button, or also if you're in the form and you hit enter, then it should automatically calculate. Now let me close up the console because we don't need it right now. So next up, let's grab onto our form, and we're going to listen again for an event, and this event will be the submit event. Now I could either do add event listener, but I prefer because at some point you will move along to a JavaScript based framework as React or Angular or whatever. I'm going to use a on submit event listener, so just the abbreviation. Now this we need to assign to a callback function. And this callback function is also going to take in as an argument the event itself. Now, as you saw, if I click on this, it's submitting. So we need to prevent this by using the event.prevent the default behavior. So prevent default of submit. And now if I click on the button, it's no longer submitting the form. Next up, I need to grab onto the loan amount again, which we already did calculate up here, but it's just introduced here, so it's not within the scope of this function or this event. So I need to grab onto it again. Let's go ahead, let's say let loan amount is equal, as we did up there, to the home. Actually, you could just copy it from here, but we don't need the value, so please delete this value. So the loan amount is equal to the home.value minus the down payment.value. And this event, the submit event, will now calculate the mortgage, but we do need the loan amount for it. So this is why we added it here again as a variable which has the scope of this function. So we could just go ahead and use the calculate mortgage function and add in our values. The first one was loan amount, the 3 arguments, loan amount, interest rate, and number of monthly payments. And I could just grab onto this. So it's the loan amount, the interest rates, and the number of monthly payments. So the first thing is loan amount, then interest rate. Now be careful because we need now the value of the interest rate. within this formula, it doesn't matter because as soon as it's inserted here, it is now inserted as a value and is pushed down this functionality. And the last thing that we need is the loan duration, and also from this its value. And remember, when we are going to insert here years, they are going to be converted to months using this formula or this functionality. And I could just now return a console log of this function right here. This function could be executed within this console log. Let's also see, it's not letting me calculate this because I added this as a number. So we need to change this to a string. We need to change this input tag. We have it, the interest rate. Let's change this input type of text. Okay, now this should work. So let's say 300, 100. So we have 200 loan. Let's say 1.2. You can see it's letting me do this now. And a 15 years duration. And we should now see in the console still not a number. Why is this? Yeah, and of course I need to add in the arguments. And now let's calculate this again. So 300, 100, 1.2, and let's say 10 years. And there we go. We have down here our monthly payment. Now we don't want to have this in the console. We do want to have it in our DOM. So we need to grab onto this one right here to the monthly payment element. And for this, I'm going to assign this calculate mortgage to a let's say mortgage again, or actually it's just a monthly payment, and we're going to grab on from the document to the monthly payment ID, which is basically HTML. There we go, this one. So get element by ID, and we're going to change its inner HTML. Dot inner HTML. We're going to assign this to this monthly payment. Now I'm going to use here backticks because I want to use template literals. Now I'm going to use a $, and we're going to add to this our monthly payment variable that we just calculated up here. So again, if I do this, let's say the home value is 1.5 million, then we have 200,000 already, and we have an interest rate of, let's say, 7.8. Holy moly. And we're going to pay this off in 15 years. Then we would need to pay a monthly fee of $12,273.85. Jesus. Okay. Now we are done with this part. Let's also add some sort of validation, because at this moment I could just calculate this and it's going to give me not a number, or I could just leave something open here and without an interest rate, and this would still calculate. It's going to give me down here not a number, but the program does not tell me what's the problem. So let's add a validation. Now the validation will take part before the form submits. So we're going to create here a function validate. What? No, just want to have here validate. This is getting annoying. Validate. Okay, and open and close parentheses. Now this function, you can create it down here. So function validate, and for the validation, I'm going to use a if statement. So if our home value dot value, so the value of this input field is empty, so we're going to check if it is an empty string, or the down payment dot value is also empty, or, and so far and so on. I think you get the idea. If all of the fields are empty, then we're going to alert. Let's just use a simple alert to verify this. Complete all, complete, and this should also be in a string. Complete all fields. Okay, so if any kind of field is empty, then we should get this alert. Now, as I said, we're going to create a custom alert, so I'm going to comment this out. Also mistyped there everything, but no problem. First of all, let's create a element. Let's create a alert element by assigning it to the document dot create element. You can create elements within the DOM. Now we're going to create a simple div element. So in parentheses, we're going to create a div element. Now this alert div element will also have a class name, and you can add here now multiple classes. I'm going to use Bootstrap classes, a btn, a red background, and a btn large. Okay, now the alert in the HTML will be, and we can use again template rules here, a span, just open and close, not you. And we're going to insert here a span tag, and this span tag will have a complete all fields text within it. And I can also go further and style it a bit by grabbing onto the element and grabbing onto the style property and margin. Let's give it a top and bottom margin of 0.5 rem and a 35% to, hey, come on, to the left and right. Now we also need to add this element. We created it, but we need to add it to our DOM. And I want to add it before our form. So we can use here the form, because we do have the form selected here. And we can just add a parent node dot insert. So we can tell it that this is the parent node and we wish to insert something before this parent node. And what do we wish to insert? Well, we wish to insert the alert element that we just created, and we wish to insert it before the form. Okay, so let's try this out. If I click on this calculate, then complete all fields, which is pretty small, will appear. Okay, now we see that we have this alert now, but we also wish to make this alert disappear. So let's add a functionality to this alert. We could add a click event. We could grab on to the alert and add an event listener of on click. And if a click happens, then we're going to assign it to a callback function, and the callback function will take the alert element and remove it. So we can use the remove property. So basically, if I click on calculate, it's going to verify that not all the fields are completed, and if I click on the element, it's going to disappear. Now we could also wish to make this disappear automatically without clicking on it. So we could use the setTimeout functionality. So it's the setTimeout, and the setTimeout will take in again a callback function, and this callback function will basically check if the alert, or will remove this alert after 3000 milliseconds, which basically mean 3 seconds. So let's try this out again. 1, 2, and 3, and it's gone. Perfect. So this is pretty much it for the project. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. If you didn't, dislike it. If you have any kind of questions or suggestions, then please leave them in the comment sections below. Again, the entire code is down in the description below, so please check it out if you messed something up. You can verify it. Let's try this again. 200 and 5.4 and 15 years, and there we go. We have no alert. If I would delete this, then I would get my alert and I could click it, or I could just wait 3 seconds and it will disappear. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the project. Thank you very much and catch you next time. Bye bye.